And we are back on the Zero Hour. I am Richard RJ Eskow, and our next guest needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. Cenk Uygur is the czar of the Young Turks media empire, former MSNBC host, former current TV host, now going gangbusters on YouTube and digital media. And as always, we're delighted to have him on the show. Cenk, thanks for joining us.
No problem, RJ. How you doing, brother?
Oh, you can call me Richard. You know, the RJ thing is a long story. I'm doing great. And it's always great to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Good. Everything's lovely in the world. Hectic, but everything is booming, so that's not a bad place to be.
No, absolutely not. You know, our show is a Young Turks network partner on YouTube, and I continue to be blown away by the numbers you guys are achieving. And I think you've passed 1 billion views or something with a B.
Yeah, right now the Young Turks is at 1.7 billion views, and the network overall, which is 35 channels online, is at about 2.5 billion views.
So that's just, I mean, that to me is mind-boggling. It's a great accomplishment. And, you know, I knew you when, man. I knew you when. So you've had a good year, and I think that's great. We'll get to how the year's been for progressive media and the country in general. But before we get off of you, there was also a movie made about you, and not too many people can say that. How was that to go into a theater and see a movie about yourself?
Yeah, it's trippy. It's really interesting experience. I've now gone to the premiere of Mad as Hell in a lot of different cities, New York, San Francisco, D.C., L.A., and so I've watched it enough times that I start to lose track of who's me and who's that guy on the screen. and so it's a movie made by a guy who was part of an Oscar-winning team in 2013. It's already won an award in Toronto, and he just made a great movie. It happens to be about us, but it's really a story about what you can do if you set your mind to it. People can find out more about it at madashellfilm.com, madashellfilm.com, and he just told a great story, and it's really an accomplishment of his more than anything else. When I look at myself, there are moments that I cringe because the story is not all good news. You know, there's ups and downs, and there are people, even people who work for me in the company who sometimes say that they don't believe what I say, which is kind of a funny thing to watch. So it's definitely ups and downs in the movie.
Well, you know, I can imagine, because there's ups and downs in life. We're talking with Cenk Uygur, host of the Young Turks. There are ups and downs in life. And, you know, I have to say, I think the only times I've ever been recognized in public have been for being on the Young Turks. I could be wrong about that, but you certainly have a tremendous reach, and you're using it. And one of the things I like about what you're doing is that your career is not just about Cenk Uygur. I think it's really about a lot of causes you believe in, and I would say the main one, correct me if I'm wrong, but the main one, the one that you've built a pack around, the Wolf Pack, is getting money out of politics. Is kind of the mother issue to me, from which all the other issues kind of flow out of. If you can't get money out of politics, you can't fix much of anything. So how's your year been in terms of that effort?
Phenomenal. Our goal was to get 3 states to pass the resolution to call for a convention to get this amendment to get money out of politics, and we hit the goal. We got, it looked like long odds when we were in the middle of the year, but then we put Vermont on the board, and then California, and recently Illinois, and we just found out yesterday that the New Jersey Senate passed it. I say we found out. I mean, I found out. Our team is on the ground. They were all over every committee hearing in New Jersey. We've got these warriors all over the country, over 10,000 volunteers that go state to state to state. And, I mean, people in Illinois, for example, said they'd never seen anything like this. They said the volunteers you have, their age, which is shockingly young for politics, Because these are people who aren't old politicians who are wedded to stupid old ideas and ways of doing things. These are guys who are rolling up their sleeves and kicking ass, and they've never seen that kind of passion either. They called the Mountain Army in Illinois, and we needed 2/3 of the legislature to vote yes in Illinois, and we got 2/3. I mean, it's just an unstoppable force. The website for that is wolf-pack.com.
Well, that was going to be my next question. We're talking with Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks about his the effort to get money out of politics. I was going to say his effort, but it's really a lot of people's efforts now. You know, I was over at your studios and watched some of the video of people on the ground there in different states making this effort. And I can only imagine how proud you are of some of them who have really stepped up and testified before legislatures and so on. And I got to say, I was also moved, I can't remember which state it was, might have been New Hampshire, where one of the legislators, who, believe me, was no kid, he looked to be in his 60s and, you know, kind of grizzled and everything, said, we hate. He just did this great speech to respond to the young people who had come to testify. We hate asking for money all the time. We hate asking everybody we know for money. So, you know, I'm hoping that this will resonate with people like that, too, who are just sick of being beggars all the time.
So that's a great point. First of all, we are liberators. Okay?
Yeah.
These politicians, they're wedded to this whole system because that's all that they know. But if you say to them, we can actually liberate you, and where at least 50% of your job, or for a lot of these guys, 70% of your job isn't going to be begging people for money anymore. They don't like that. Who likes begging people for money? I mean, what kind of a weird, horrible person enjoys that process, right? And so in the beginning, they're against it because they don't want to let go of how they got into power, just being really honest and realistic about it. But once they see that, you know, they can actually legislate, it just, and once you introduce it, 95% of people agree with us. Over 80% of Republicans agree with us. They hate that money corrupts politics, right? That's what leads to crony capitalism. That's what leads to, you know, this big government that they don't like, that gives out these contracts, et cetera. So we're helping to set them free. And then in New Hampshire, yes, there was that great person that said that. We lost in New Hampshire, but that's also a really interesting story. So there was a Republican named Valancourt who tabled our resolution in New Hampshire. So we don't win everywhere, of course. It's a much, much harder process than that, right?
Yeah, but I got to correct you. I got to jump in and correct you on one thing, Cenk Uygur, which is I wouldn't say, if he tabled your resolution, I wouldn't say you lost. I would say somebody short-circuited the process so that you didn't get a shot at winning. That's
true. We never had the vote. That's absolutely right. And believe me, we're coming back to New Hampshire. And so this story will let you know about that. So this guy Valancourt tables our resolution. That pissed off our executive director so much that he packed up his bags, left his house in Maryland, moved to New Hampshire into Valancourt's district just to make sure that we would defeat that guy. And he's a six-term incumbent. He's been in office since the 1990s, and people said, you're crazy. But they've been saying we're crazy all along. He lost. And that sent shockwaves through New Hampshire. There's a huge headline which we framed and is in my office now, and we call it Remember Valancourt. And the headline in the local paper was, you know, shocking result as Valancourt goes down, right? That was us. He lost by less than 100 votes, and he's now can go and pack his bags. Because we're not playing around. It isn't just patty cakes, and we're not one of those groups in D.C. that does this just to make a living or something. None of us want to do this. We want to win this and then go back to what we normally do. I don't like spending all this time on it, but we have to. There's no other way. But one last thing about it. There's one of our volunteers in the midst of helping us in her state, obviously for another reason, she broke her back, okay?
I got 10 seconds, Cenk, so maybe we ought to save this story for when we come back.
All right, I'll tell you what she did with her broken back.
All right, I want to hear it. We're talking with Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks and the Wolf Pack about getting money out of politics, and we will wrap up this conversation after the break. I'm RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero Hour. And we are back on the Zero Hour. I am Richard RJ Eskow, and we are talking with Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks about Wolfpack. That's wolf-pack.com. Effort to get money out of politics and some of the great stories that we heard this year and inspirational ones. You were just telling us about a volunteer, Cenk. I forget in what state, but you were just telling us her story.
Yeah, so she broke her back and she's in the hospital. And so we think, oh, well, thank you for your efforts. Obviously, we'll see you when you get better. She's like, no, you'll see me right now. And she picked up a phone at the hospital and kept calling her legislators, even with a broken back, to get our resolution passed. I mean, these people are unstoppable. And that's why every state we're in, the politicians and their staffers say they've never seen a force like this. And our effort is not to feel better. It's to win. It's to win, and we're going to win. And eventually the opposition is going to get depressed because they're going to see that our victory is inevitable. So if you want to be part of that fight and you want to you're tired of sitting back and getting hammered by the powerful, we have a way that you can fight back and you can win. And that's, as Richard pointed out, wolf-pack.com.
All right. Well, so that's a great story, and one we're going to keep following because, as I say, it's kind of the mother of all issues. So we're just wrapping up a calendar year. Maybe it's just an arbitrary division of time, but it's still time when people stop and reflect. And Cenk Uygur, what do you think? If I put you on the spot and said, what did you think was the biggest story or the biggest couple stories of the year? What would you say?
It's that time of year I should be better prepared for this question.
All right. Well, don't answer it. I mean, it's okay. We're friends. You don't have to answer it, but let me change it up and put you on the spot in a different way. You guys always kick me out of the Young Turks when it gets time to do the popular culture stuff. And I don't know if it's, that last hour and I don't know if it's because you think I'll be embarrassed by the sexual stuff or what, but what do you have an idea what might have been the big popular culture story of the year?
No, another good one.
All right, let me throw at you what some of the big searches.
One for a second.
Yeah,
it's I think the story that is probably the biggest one, but that I'm not sure is getting enough coverage. And when I say you'll say, what do you mean? I get a lot of coverage, but here's what I mean: it's ISIS, right? And so, ISIS gets a ton of coverage, but what I really mean is the fact that we have gone and restarted a war in Iraq and Syria. And we did it so subtly and so unanimously that we never really had a conversation about it. And the president who promised us change and is constantly, to this day, brags about getting us out of Iraq, put us right back into Iraq. And
right.
And it's weird that we made this momentous decision, and now it's not just Iraq, it's Iraq and Syria. And by the way, we were supposed to have celebrated about 10 days ago getting out of Afghanistan, but quietly, President Obama actually has issued a decree where we're going to put more troops in Afghanistan next year, not less. Okay? So
right.
It's a symbol of how the war machine hums on without us being able to we seem powerless to stop. And again, it goes back to the issue of money in politics. These guys have so thoroughly bought the system that until you fix that problem, we're never going to stop it. And then it's going to be a war in Yemen and then Somalia and round we're going to go. And it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or even a Democrat who promised to get us out of the wars in the Middle East. The war machine must be fed. So that's the underlying story that I think is both huge and not told well enough this year.
Well, that's a great answer, Cenk Uygur. I think that's a great answer, and it ties in in my mind, completely to the whole wolf pack effort, which is if you look at the way the defense industry contributes to the political process, and by the way, to the media and who appears on NBC and elsewhere talking about these things, you find a machine that does feed it, and you can bet. I looked into it. I looked into the money, and every time you hear about a Hellfire missile attack or another missile attack on an ISIS location, you can write off $2 million in expenditures. So the cash register keeps moving. And I guess I would say we probably got about 30 seconds left. Any closing thoughts? You looking forward to the new year or with optimism or just girded for battle?
Obama is going to do nothing but make deals with Republicans in the next year. So it's buckle up. It's not going to be a good year in that front. And on the pop culture front, Bill Cosby. So we've lost another one of our heroes, but it goes towards the larger issue of don't believe the hype.
Right.
There's a lot of marketing, and what's underneath is not as good as what people say.
No, that's always true. Fat Albert, we hardly knew you. And we'll have to leave it there. Cenk Uygur, host of the Young Turks, a good friend of this program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Richard.
Always a pleasure. And we will be back right after this with more. I am Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero Hour.